Yes.
Greetings from the United States of America. My name is Amitabh Pal, and I am the Communications Director of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
On behalf of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti, MANS, an organization that has been working for comprehensive social reforms.
Greetings from the United States of America. My name is.
This organization was founded on 9th August 1989 by our beloved leader and eminent social reformer of modern India, martyr Dr. Narendra Dabholkar. He was murdered by right-wing extremists on 20th August 2013. Despite this rude shock, this organization has grown and expanded further even after the sad death of Dr. Dabholkar. Thanks to the power of the thoughts of Dr. Dabholkar, the superb, faultless organizational structure and system created by him in the form of MANS, fearless and untiring efforts of thousands of committed activists, and the leadership of our Executive President, Mr. Avinash Patil. The theme of today's webinar is Scientific Temper for Independence and Independence for Scientific Temper. And the reason for organizing this webinar, particularly on this theme, is that we, the people of India, are celebrating the 75th year of our independence. I am glad and proud to state that this webinar will be addressed by our three distinguished guests from United States of America, who are working for humanity and rationalism through their respective organizations. Our organization's executive president, Mr. Avinash Patil, will preside the webinar. After speech of every speaker, some time is allotted for question-answer session. The participants are requested to ask questions, if any, to the speaker through message or comment box of Facebook or YouTube, whichever you are using for viewing this webinar. So let us begin this webinar. I request Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao, Chief of International Coordination Department of MANS, to deliver the welcome speech and inform all of us about the theme of today's webinar. Over to you, Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao.
Okay, thank you, Uttam Jagdanji. Respected panelists and the resource persons of the today's webinar, Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj, the board member of Center for Inquiry USA, Dr. Abby Hafer, the board member of American Humanist Association, Dr. Amitabh Pal, Communications Director, Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Avinash Patil, Executive President of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti, and the today's chairperson of the webinar. I am Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao, the Secretary for International Coordination Department of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti. Welcomes all of you on behalf of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti. I am very happy to state that all of you have accepted our invitation as to be the panelist for this webinar. Now, let me give some brief information about our organization, that is Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti. The Samiti is a voluntary organization fighting against all forms of superstitions in Maharashtra for the last 31 years. Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti was founded by the great visionary and leader, martyr Dr. Narendra Dabholkar, on 9th August 1989. The struggle against superstitions still continues after the brutal assassination of Dr. Narendra Dabholkar on 20th August 2013. Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti has contributed a lot in last 30 years in the fields of social, educational, cultural, and health in the state of Maharashtra. The movement exposed loud claims of miracles, opposed various exploitative and inhuman practices of superstitions, giving scientific explanations and thus spreading scientific outlook throughout the state. We have successfully curbed the activities of many miracle-mongering Babas and Tantrics and also contributed a lot to pass a law against black magic by the state of Maharashtra in the year 2013. The work of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti is underlined by another law in the 2017 as the Prevention of Social Boycott Act passed by the state of Maharashtra. On the completion of its 30 years, on 9th August 2019, 3 years before almost, of our organization, we have organized an international webinar on conference on the theme of rationalism for humanity at Mumbai. The Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti have contributed our resources in passing of a bill against human sacrifice in an African country like Uganda. Recently, the Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti's contribution in collaboration with the Witchcraft and Human Rights International Network became a reason to pass the resolution on condemning witchcraft and harmful religious practices in the United Nations Human Rights Council in its meeting held on 12 July 21 of this year. About the pandemic, all of us know that the entire world today suffers because of the COVID-19 pandemic. All humans are caught in it. To overcome the pandemic is a milestone question before the entire world. The age-old problems like pseudoscience, superstitions, and mental health problems are in front of all of us with new challenges along with the violence and misunderstanding about each other. The date that is the 20th August, that is the martyr day of Dr. Narendra Dabholkar, is observed as National Scientific Temper Day in India since last 3 years to commemorate his work. At the same time, our nation, India, celebrates its 75th independence year, that is the Diamond Jubilee in 2021. So to utilize this, Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti has decided to organize various activities for sensitizing people on scientific temper for independence and independence for the scientific temper. We feel that during this Diamond Jubilee celebration of independence of India, it is essential to make youth, women, and general people aware about the need of scientific temperament and freedom through quality discussions. Hence, we organized today's international level webinar on the theme Scientific Temper for Independence and Independence for the Scientific Temper. The fundamental rights recognized by the Indian Constitution are the right to equality, the right to freedom, the right against exploitation, the right to freedom of religion, and cultural and educational rights. At the same time, the fundamental duties which are added by the 42nd Amendment in the year 1976 in our Indian Constitution, and according to the Article 51H, which states that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. The term scientific temper, which is there in this article, is broadly defined as a modest, open-minded temper, a temper ever ready to welcome new light, new knowledge, new experiments, even when the results are unfavorable to preconceived opinions and long-cherished theories. The scientific temper is a way of life which uses the scientific method and which may consequently include the questioning, observing physical reality, testing, hypothesizing, analyzing, and communicating. The discussion, argument, and analysis are the vital parts of scientific temper. So it aims to inculcate the values of scientific thinking appreciate scientific development, and drive away the superstitions, religious bigotry, and all forms of pseudoscience. The panelists of today's webinar and the organizations they represent are also actively working for the same cause of development of scientific temperament since many years in their country. In such a backdrop, to organize this international webinar in collaboration with these organizations will definitely support and guide the common man. The issue based on the theme will be discussed at a large level and will reach to a greater number of people who are attending this. This joint venture will re-energize us to carry on our mission more effectively and efficiently too. We expect more positive suggestions will come out through the discussion in this webinar and which will make it a successful event. Thank you. Thank you all and welcome once again to all of you. Thank you. Over to Uttam Jagdan sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao-ji. You have nicely narrated about our organization and about theme of today's webinar. Now I invite Mrs. Sushila Munde, Principal Secretary of MANS, to introduce our esteemed guest and speaker, respected Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj. Over to you, Madam Sushila Munde.
Thank you, Uttam. Good morning, sir, and good evening to everybody. Vinod Bhardwaj, who is a board member Center for Inquiry USA. He received a bachelor's degree in electronics and electrical communications engineering from IIT Kharagpur in the year 1967, and he migrated to US in 1982. From the year 1975 to 2005, he founded 8 technology companies, 3 companies in India and 5 in US. The most successful was a company by the name Kalpana, founded in the year 1987. At Kalpana, he invented and patented a major hardware networking product called the Ethernet switch, now simply called the network switch. This company was acquired by Cisco Systems in 1994 and was a major factor in the success of Cisco, which was the only company making routers and Kalpana the only company making switches. After the acquisition of Kalpana, Cisco had a complete solution to creating the internet. This experience is in problem solving in technology, but his real passion is, of course, science. These days, he spends his time thinking about how technology could solve the climate problems. Currently, he is a retired living in Maui and spends a lot of time playing golf and gardening. Really, it's a great personality is with us, and I'm sure you all are very eager to listen to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushila Munde, for introducing respected Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj to all of us. Now our honorable speaker, Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj, will speak on the theme of today's webinar. But before that, dear participants, please note that if you wish to ask any question to our today's speaker, please type the same in message comment box of YouTube or Facebook, whichever you are using for viewing this webinar. And after Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj concludes his speech, he will answer the same. Now I request respected Mr. Bhardwaj to take over and deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your invitation to speak at this event. As an Indian, I feel really proud that your organization is doing such great work in promoting scientific temper. We are here with me speaking to you through a video conference over a year after a deadly pandemic has taken hold and brought the world to its knees. As I have watched from the sidelines at how everything has unfolded, I'm really surprised at the world turning against scientific thought, even more than usual, especially at a time like this. In America, where I reside, we are fortunate to have enough vaccines available, but we are struggling to get a large portion of the population to inoculate themselves, as many do not trust the science of vaccines or do not believe in coronavirus altogether. Then in India, at such a delicate time, with the looming Delta variant ready to pounce upon the population, a Kumbh Mela not only was allowed to take place, but was moved 1 year earlier instead of 2022, because the astrologers thought it is auspicious that the Mela occur in 2021. Auspicious, while so many died as a result. What about karma, a main tenet of Hinduism that hundreds of millions of people believe in? I would have thought something like coronavirus would have ended any belief towards a thought like that. For was it really that so many children had bad karma from their past life that they deserved to be orphans after their parents died of the coronavirus? What about those who were infected at Kumbh Mela? If anything, the bad karma should be on the astrologers who chose to advance the date of the Mela by 1 year. Is that only people with bad karma get infected with the coronavirus? We cannot talk about karma without speaking of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun did not want to fight because he believed in the idea that it is worth it to let 10 criminals go free as long as one innocent man is not punished. He wanted to give up his throne for the love of his family members. But Lord Krishna's concept of karma was the lesson that the Mahabharata should have taught us eons ago, was to not trust someone who calls himself a god. As an example, if you had a close friend who told you one day that he's God, you would think him to be absolutely crazy, no matter how much you care or respect him. Following, one can become a god. Acharya Rajneesh became known as Bhagwan Rajneesh after he collected a mass following. No one called him crazy for calling himself Bhagwan. Javed Akhtar, the Indian poet, if a faith loses followers, it becomes stupidity again. Bhagwan Rajneesh is now gone, but in his stead, we have thousands of gurus all over who are hailed as gods with millions of cult followers. They are not only claiming miracles, but they are taking away our most precious asset. A sign at the entrance of Bhagwan Rajneesh Ashram in Pune said, shoes and minds are to be left here at the gate. A devotee of Bhagwan Rajneesh said, the master and you are within yourselves. He simply touches you and he knows if thirst and curiosity is something to stay away. At the opposite end, there is the American physicist Richard Feynman, whose book titled The Pleasure of Finding Things Out celebrates that same curiosity and humanity's desire to strive for knowledge. The greatest discovery of science is not a discovery at all, but an invention, the scientific method. The scientific method, the most basic principle taught in any class, whether it is biology, chemistry, physics, a 6-step process. Questioning something you observe, researching what is already known about the topic, formulating a hypothesis, conducting and analyzing the data to then draw a conclusion you can communicate to others. This scientific method is the only way to separate truth from untruth. A scientific idea is one that can be tested and falsified. The gurus will not allow their so-called miracles to be tested, adopting the scientific method. It is probably pretty easy to believe in something that can never be proven wrong. I am really humbled to be here speaking with you today as I speak of the virtues of the scientific method, because one among you truly gave everything to uphold the value of the scientific temper. I am speaking of none other than Narendra Dabholkar, who paid the ultimate price with his life. His courageousness is unparalleled, and I'd like to read a part of an open letter he wrote to India's President Abdul Kalam when he graced the inaugural ceremony of an educational institution run by Satya Baba. He wrote, "We are an organization struggling to propagate scientific outlook for the last 15 years. This letter is to express the deep anguish caused by your presence at Satya Sai Baba's function. You are a great scientist and well aware that nurturing scientific outlook is the duty of every citizen of this country as per the Constitution of India. Inculcating scientific outlook is an important core constituent of education and is included in the value education content of the schools in Maharashtra. Again, you are well aware that scientific outlook and miracle relate to each other in the same way that light and darkness do. Narendra Dabholkar knew the importance of upholding these values and was not afraid to speak out. But even through a scientific temper, progress is very slow. Physicist Max Planck said, and I quote, "A new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. An important scientific innovation rarely makes its way by gradually winning over and converting its opponents. It rarely happens that Saul becomes Paul. What does happen is that its opponents gradually die out, and that the growing generation is familiarized with the ideas from the beginning. another instance of the fact that the future lies with the youth. Yes, the future lies with the youth of India. So this is what I have to say to the youth of India. The old generation will die believing in the greatness of Vedanta. But it is up to you to reject a philosophy that despises thinking and the desire to acquire knowledge. You have so much to take pride in. Take pride in Article 51A, Section H of the Constitution of India, which says, it shall be the duty of every citizen to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. Take pride in the fact that India is the only country in the world to include in its constitution the word scientific temper. Take pride in what Nehru wrote in his book, The Discovery of India. He says that scientific temper is the refusal to accept anything without testing and trial. The refusal to accept anything without testing and trial. The to change previous conclusion in the face of new evidence. And I'll repeat, the capacity to change previous conclusion in the face of new evidence. The reliance on observed fact and not on preconceived theory. So do not be narrow-minded like the old generation that is looking for Indian exceptionalism at the cost of scientific temper, like believing in Vedanta. Let us not let Narendra Dabholkar's fight for scientific temper go to waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinod Bhardwaj, sir.
So I left some time for the questions. I made the speech a little less because how much can we write about scientific temper?
Yes, sir. So you have nicely explained the situation in US, then karma theory, Lord Krishna's morality, Rajneesh, then you question what distinguishes us from animal, and you move to this scientific temperament or scientific method. Then you talked about Narendra Dabholkar and his letter to India's president. And you gave a beautiful message to youth of means next generation. Don't be narrow-minded like old people. So
yes.
Nice speech, sir. And now I request Mr. Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao to read out questions, if any, asked by participants, so that Bhardwaj sir can answer those questions. Over to you.
Yeah, sir, we haven't received a question by this time. Okay, so we expect the question may be asked throughout the webinar. Okay,
that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
Okay, we'll wait. Okay, we'll wait. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll move to the next. So
we are moving forward in this webinar. Now I invite Dr. Savita Shetty, Head of National Coordination Committee of our organization, to introduce our esteemed guest, respected Madam Dr. Abby Hafer. Over to you, Dr. Savita Shetty.
Thank you, Uttam Jogdan sir. Dr. Abby Hafer is a board member of American Humanist Association, USA. Abby Hafer is a biologist, educator, writer, public speaker, and professional debunker. She has a doctorate in zoology from Oxford University and teaches human anatomy and physiology at Curry College. Her written books include the books The Not So Intelligent Designer and Darwin's Apostles, numerous book chapters and articles. She debunks both the gender binary and creationism, intelligent design using humor and bulletproof science. Dr. Hafer is also the co-author of Bill H471, a bill in the Massachusetts legislature which requires that all science taught in public schools be based on peer-reviewed science. She hopes that someday reality-based public science education will be thus protected all over the country. Dr. Hafer has been an author on both scientific research articles and science communication articles for general readers. She is a public speaker who has appeared at numerous conferences, as she has come here today, and on radio, television, and podcasts. So I welcome Dr. Abby. Thanks to all. Over to Mr. Uttam Jogdan.
Thank you, Dr. Savita Shetty, for introducing our honorable guest. And we are really eager to hear such a powerful guest at this webinar. So I request respected Dr. Abby Hafer to express her thoughts on scientific temper for independence and independence for scientific temper. But before that, participants, please note, if you wish to ask any question to our speaker, please type the same in your message box or comment box on YouTube or Facebook. After her speech, Dr. Abby will answer the same. Over to you, Madam Dr. Abby Hafer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this. I'm deeply honored by the invitation. And on the subject of today's webinar, I should say that in the United States, where I live, really for the past at least 40 years, science has not been as respected as it should be, certainly not consistently. So from the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, which took place in 1986, right through to the present with COVID-19, it is the case that science has often been ignored to the detriment of many people. And there are many different aspects of life that have been affected this way, and I'm going to address them sort of as different groups of subject material. So there's understanding nature, such as evolution and climate change. And peculiarly, perhaps alone in the Western world, the United States does not have a good record for accepting evolution by natural selection. And this is a peculiar result of religious sway in this country. Although many different religious faiths do accept evolution, there are many very conservative Protestant faiths in this country that do not, and have successfully prevented people from learning about it, largely by harassing teachers to the point where they would rather not teach it. So therefore, many students do not learn it, even if they would be interested in it, because they don't have teachers who are willing to talk about it. And perhaps they grew up in an environment like that, so they may not know that much about it. So in fact, I personally have traveled all over the United States because I'm a biologist, giving people the information that they can use to talk about evolution in a way that may work under their circumstances and that may work in the political arena, and as a way to help answer questions in a direct way. And regarding understanding nature, climate change also is nowhere near as well accepted as it should be in this country. It has powerful political opponents who do not want to hear about climate change. And I am a biologist, and I wish that I could come up with a good way of talking about climate change that would be appealing politically. I tend to do my public speaking around topics that I know so intimately that I simply can figure out a way to approach it. I have not yet figured that out for climate change, but it is something that desperately needs to be addressed throughout the world, but that includes in the United States. But other aspects of life that are affected by a lack of scientific temperament include LGBT rights and the so-called naturalness of any given sexual orientation or sexual identity. There are many people who will essentially claim the argument from nature, which is that if they feel that something is unnatural, that automatically means that it is wrong. And very often the people who claim this are people who know virtually nothing about nature because they have been taught by their religion rather than by science or through scientific observation. Again, as a biologist, both with a degree in zoology and someone who teaches human anatomy and physiology, I take a great deal of pleasure in doing public speaking around the issues of LGBT rights, and particularly about the occurrence of various different forms of sexuality that occur in nature. So that if anyone claims that something is unnatural, they're going to have to talk to a zoologist about that. So as I said, I find this entertaining, but I think it's also a good kind of message to spread. And as happens throughout the world, another problem often has to do with healing and medicine, where there are lots of different issues and many different quacks will get involved in saying things that are not true. The United States did not address AIDS nearly as well as it should have in the early days, largely because the scientific view was not appreciated. Nutrition and health are multi-million-dollar industries in the United States, and they are often based on pseudoscience. There's a lot of good science out there, but there's a lot of pseudoscience out there as well. Abortion itself is a health issue that very often gets taken over by a religious viewpoint, very greatly to the detriment of many people. And of course, right now, at present, we have COVID-19, which the United States has not handled as well as it should. We've done lots of great scientific work on it. It has been fabulous in many ways, but the social response has been nowhere near as good as it should and has been nowhere near as scientifically oriented as it should be. I take great pride that a number of the vaccines were developed here in the United States, though through international collaboration. I consider it truly marvelous, the speed at which the vaccines were developed. So there's a great deal of good scientific work that has been done. But as you are probably aware, the acceptance of vaccines has not been nearly what it should be in the United States. One way in which I actually want to point up how the scientific process has worked during this pandemic, which I find it has been exciting in a very, sad way. I wish I were not experiencing this pandemic, but on the other hand, it has been exciting to watch the science develop, has to do with aerosol transmission, which early on, we did not think that this virus was largely transmitted through aerosols. But because of data collected in the field as the virus progressed, as the pandemic went on, and we looked at transmission in hospitals, and we looked at the presence of the virus in aerosols and the like. We actually learned about this as we were going on, and thereby learned about the importance of air filters and masks and so on in preventing transmission, not just for the safety of one's own person, but for the safety of others. So as I said, the whole topic of aerosol transmission has been one where we have seen the scientific temperament in action doing what it should do. And that has actually been very exciting to me. Now, regarding resistance to the scientific temperament, there are things to be done, though they are hard. The first one is persisting. And it's hard and it's sometimes dangerous, as you have related. And I take my hat off to all the people who are trying to do that. But it is a matter sometimes of having an iron jaw, of saying the same thing over and over and over again to different audiences. But I will also say that very often these issues, which should be scientific issues, become political issues. And one weakness that scientists have is that the way that we talk about issues, the way that we talk about our research, is not a way that works in the political arena. We are taught to present our data and present our conclusions and then stand back. And we believe somewhat innocently that the facts will speak for themselves. And we have seen repeatedly that that does not work in the scientific arena, in the political arena. Political arguments are different. Political arguments must be short, easy to understand, easy to repeat. Because we are scientists, we want them to be true, but they also preferably should be entertaining. It helps to tell stories. One example that I will give that I consider brave has to do with LGBT rights, where the out campaigns in the United States, where members of the LGBT community have actually presented themselves as being gays or lesbians or the like, so that the greater population realized that they had gay friends, that they had lesbian friends and the like. These people were very brave in outing themselves, but on the other hand, it led to a greater understanding that the population is full of gay people and lesbians, and society has not collapsed, and everyone is fine, and they are good neighbors, and they are good friends. And the out campaigns, I think, have actually done a great deal for the understanding of LGBT rights and the acceptance of LGBT rights, and the acceptance, which is a part of the scientific temperament, that basically the data are there. This is natural. It's okay. It does not lead to social collapse. But this was done through the bravery of a whole bunch of people. Other things that you can do to help move things along do include legislation. I'm very impressed with what you said about the Indian Constitution, of which I had been unaware. And there's also just plain education, educating people about the scientific method, educating people about what the scientific method has, what we have learned as a result of the scientific method. When I give talks to people about how science is done, I often say it is the two things. Many people think that science is basically a suitcase full of facts, whereas the most important part of science is the method of investigation, which then leads to these facts that we have slowly and painfully accumulated. I sometimes say that science moves at the speed of a glacier, but with the power of a bulldozer. when you treat something to the scientific method, it moves everything in front of it. And it really is very, very powerful. So what we can do can include trying to legislate. I have written a bill for the Massachusetts legislature, as was mentioned in the introduction, trying to make it required that science education be based on peer-reviewed science. And I would now add empirically based peer-reviewed science. In Massachusetts, we are doing very well. It is not a problem for Massachusetts public school education, I am pleased to say. But I consider having this legislation in place as a way of protecting students and teachers and their parents, as having something to point to if they need to, but also as model legislation for the rest of the country, because there are many other states in the United States that allow the teaching of alternatives to evolution and alternatives to climate change. And they are pseudoscience, and they should not be allowed to happen in public schools. And this is something that can be dealt with through legislation. And we have discovered in the United States that very often the states are where a good idea starts, and you will have the legislation passed in one state, and then it can spread out from there, either for good or for ill. In this case, I'm trying to do some good. We can all do public speaking, and we can all generally try to encourage people to accept the scientific method and the scientific temper. But there are many different ways to approach it. I've given you a few here, but I'm going to reiterate that when you are speaking in public, when you are dealing with a political issue, political arguments really are different. And they are not the way that scientists are taught to present their ideas and present their facts. So it is something where we have to reteach ourselves how to present to the general public in a way that will be comprehensible. And as I said, the things to do there are to come up with arguments that are short, easy to understand, easy to repeat, and preferably entertaining. And I think I will stop with that last idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abby Hafer, for your brilliant speech. You spoke about the situation in US and the response of public to science as well as to this COVID-19 pandemic. They are not accepting this science. That's what you told. You talked about LGBT rights, then poor response of people to vaccinations, and then you talked about aerosols, and also things to be done to spread this scientific temper. Your statement that science moves with the speed of glacier, but with power of boulders, this tells us all. We are proud about your work in Massachusetts about that legislation. We wish best for that. And we also have noted your guidelines on how to speak in public while talking of these scientific methods and scientific temper, etc. So very nice speech. Now I request Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao to see whether there is any question from our participants and read it over to Madam. Over to you, Dr. Sudesh.
Okay, thank you, Uttam. Madam, there is one question from the Facebook platform asked by Mr. Amar Nag. The question is, have you come across creationism and evolution denial by the ISKCON, that is the Hare Krishna cult? Could a Hindu version of evolution denial spread through India in the coming years? There are two questions actually.
Okay, now I'm afraid I didn't understand. I heard something. I'm sorry. I'm not doing well, I guess, with the technology. It was something about creationism. Could you just repeat it slowly, please? I apologize.
Okay. The question is, have you come across creationism and evolution denial by the ISKCON cult?
By the ISKCON cult? I don't know what.
ISKCON, it's a Hare Krishna, Hare Rama cult.
Okay.
The Hindu cult is there.
I personally have not. Usually when there is evolution denial in the United States, it is usually from fundamentalist Christians.
Okay.
But it is unfortunately, how can I put it? People find it fun. So if there is a cult in India that would find a way to do it, I wouldn't be surprised if they would try and if it would become popular.
Yeah.
And I am happy to give tips to anyone who wants to speak in public about this. I have been speaking in public about evolution and specifically about debunking what is called intelligent design, which is the usual way that creationists in the United States try to refute evolution these days, which basically goes that nature, and particularly the human body, is so absolutely fabulously designed, so fabulous that it has to have been designed by an intelligent creator. And I teach human anatomy and physiology. So as a result, I can tell you all about just how poorly designed the human body is. I take a great deal of pleasure in doing so, because although the human body is marvelous and amazing, it does not pass good design specifications. And there's a great deal of fun that can be had with that concept. I am happy to share with anybody who's interested. I'm happy to speak publicly about it. So if anybody wants me to speak, let me know. And I will see what I can do. I have some talks prepared with slides that are frankly a whole lot of fun.
Okay, that's good. There is another question from the YouTube audience asked by Mr. Arun Inamdar. The question is like, has anyone in United States tried using cartoons to inculcate scientific temper in the children?
What a wonderful question. And the answer is we have tried, but it's hard to get the funding for it. As a matter of fact, I have personally tried. The TV actor, John Delancey, who appeared in Star Trek: The Next Generation, was very interested in some of the work that I had done. And the two of us got together because he was very interested in exactly what the questioner put forward, which was the idea of using cartoons, basically short cartoons, as a way of entertaining and teaching children. You know, maybe 10 years old was kind of our target audience. But we have not been able to make the project go forward. Animation is expensive and time consuming. Mr. Delancey does wonderful voice work. But we've tried and we have not yet managed to make it work. It is hard to attract funding. It's really hard to make this whole thing go forward. I think it's a great idea, but it's very hard to execute.
Okay, thank you. Now, Uttam, you can go ahead. Questions are over.
Any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you for answering.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abby and Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao. It seems that there are no more questions so far. Now, we all are eager to hear the speech of respected Mr. Amitabh Pal. But before that, I am requesting Mr. Sudhir Nimbalkar, Deputy Chief of Funds Management Department of our organization, to introduce our honorable speaker, Mr. Amitabh Pal. Over to you, Mr. Sudhir Nimbalkar.
Hello, Uttam. Sudhir is not there, so I am giving the introduction of Mr. Amitabh Pal.
Okay.
Dr. Amitabh Pal is the Communications Director of FFRF, that is the Freedom from Religion Foundation, United States of America. Prior to joining in February 2016, he was the Managing Editor of the Progressive magazine for more than a decade. He was also the editor of the Progressive Media Project, an affiliate to the Progressive that sends out op-eds through the Tribune wire service to hundreds of newspapers in the United States and other countries. Dr. Pal has appeared on CSPN and BBC and television and radio stations all over the United States and abroad too. His articles have been published in school and college textbooks in the United States and Australia. Dr. Pal teaches a course at Edgewood College in Madison, Wisconsin. He has a master's in journalism from the University of North Carolina and a master's in political science from North Carolina State University. So that is in brief about the Dr. Amitabh Pal. Over to you, Uttam Jogdan sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sudesh Ghodirao. All of us are aware that our organization was given an award by this US organization. As I understand, Amitabh Das, his recorded speech is submitted to us because he was likely to face some internet connectivity problems due to his pre-decided travel plans. So I think this recorded version will be played and he is available for question and answer, I think. So I request Mr. Avadut, our technical support and state level office bearer of our organization, to play the recorded speech of Dr. Amitabh. Over to you, Avadut.
Greetings from the United States of America. My name is Amitabh Pal, and I am the Communications Director of the Freedom from Religion Foundation in the state of Wisconsin, in the capital city of Madison. And it is such a privilege and an honor for me to be invited to speak at this webinar that the Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti is organizing for India's 75th independence anniversary, and to mark the notion and promote the notion of scientific temper, which is so befitting because, of course, in India now, the assassination anniversary of the late Shri Narendra Dabholkar is commemorated as National Scientific Temper Day. And we, first of all, want to applaud MANS and its leadership, especially Shri Avinash Patil's perseverance and courage in carrying on the work of science and scientific temper, and applauding it in the face, in the work it's doing in the face of some obstacles and trying circumstances. We in the United States and India have faced the same situation in recent years, especially more so with COVID. And as COVID has shown, the idea, the concept of scientific temper needs to be propagated and completely spread throughout these populations so as to be able, that they're able to take on such dire situations as the pandemic that both of our countries are facing. Our connections go deep between the Freedom from Religion Foundation and MANS. Bertrand Russell is someone we at our office really admire. Bertrand Russell is one of the people who is said to have first publicly used the notion of scientific temper or scientific temperament, which has been, of course, adopted as kind of the slogan by MANS. And Bertrand Russell's admirer and intellectual protege was none other than Jawaharlal Nehru, somebody we also admired at FFRF and honor. He's actually on our calendar this year, for example, and every November 14th, we have his quotation up on our electronic marquee. Nehru was the person who inculcated and introduced the notion of scientific temper in India. In his foundational work, The Discovery of India, which is a must-read, he said the applications of science are inevitable and unavoidable, but something more than its application is necessary. It is the scientific approach, the adventurous yet critical temper of science, the search for truth and new knowledge, the refusal to accept anything without testing and trial, the capacity to change previous conclusions in the face of new evidence, the reliance on observed fact and not preconceived theory. This should be a way of life, a process of thinking, a method of acting and associating with our fellow men. It is the temper of a free man. We live in the scientific age, so we are told, but there's little evidence of this temper in the people anywhere or even in their leaders. He was so right. And he also said that the scientific method of objective inquiry is not applicable in all fields, but even when we go to the regions beyond the reach of the scientific method and visit the mountain tops where philosophy dwells and high emotions fill us, or gaze at the immensity beyond, that approach and temper are still necessary. And he said in a very, very rationalist outlook and approach that as knowledge advances, the domain of religion in the narrow sense of the word shrinks. The more we understand life and nature, the less we look for supernatural causes, something that has been embraced by both FFRF and MANS. And it is therefore with the temper and approach of science allied to philosophy and with reverence for all that lies beyond that we must face life, that thus we may develop an integral vision of life which embraces in its wide scope the past and the present with all their heights and depths and look with serenity toward the future. Nehru thus introduced the notion of scientific temper in India. Later on, it was formally inculcated into the constitution, and through so many scientific agencies that he set up, he tried to popularize this notion among the public. And he wasn't at all, anti-Indian. Unlike what his detractors say, he was very Indian and yet very much wedded to the scientific approach at the same time. And MANS is carrying on so much of the same work. Alas, in today's India, as in the United States, the need for this work is greater than ever. As has been seen in India during the pandemic, under the current government's leadership, all manner of quack science and pseudoscience have been encouraged. Baba Ramdev has released a supposed COVID cure or remedy, Coronil, under official patronage. In fact, 2 ministers actually attended the inaugural of the release of the medicine. This anti-scientific approach goes all the way to the top, from members of parliament who claim that drinking cow urine keeps them immune from COVID, all the way up to the Prime Minister, who has said famously or infamously that the Mahabharata shows that in vitro fertilization existed, and that Lord Ganesh shows that plastic surgery existed in ancient India. Not all of this necessarily in India comes from the ruling party. There are enough culprits, but this quackery has received official patronage and cover in a way that it hasn't in the past, all the way from cow remedies to alternative medicine, which is very, very questionable, to extolling yoga as a cure. This hasn't happened, a fraction of this in the past. Similarly, in this country, President Trump and the Republican Party have been guilty of propagating extremely dubious remedies such as hydroxychloroquine, for example, very famously, and others, and claiming that the pandemic is either greatly exaggerated or made up, refusing to take the vaccine, often on religious grounds. And there is a correlation between being religious. A new study has shown, for example, that evangelicals, fundamentalist Christians, are the least likely to receive the vaccine, and atheists are the most likely to have received the vaccine in the United States. There's a Pew Research Center study that just came out that we have quoted in a press release today itself. In both these countries, the problem is that, as a friend of mine, Dr. Nasia Safdar, the head of in the infectious diseases department at the University of Wisconsin, says, people are much more willing to trust anonymous online sources rather than experts and doctors and go their own way, even supposedly educated people. In India, the joke goes that WhatsApp University is prevalent. People look up stuff and are convinced even when there is no scientific evidence or basis. The problem in both countries is there's scientific illiteracy, mathematical innumeracy, and media illiteracy. People are, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a mathematician, but the third aspect, which is media illiteracy, I am equipped to combat, and I wish I could do some media literacy classes for India, in India, to show people what sources to trust, what not to trust, and what to have faith in, so to speak, and what not to have faith in. That's why the work that MANS is doing is very, very important. It is so vital in this day and age to spread the scientific temper or the scientific temperament. We are very happy and willing to collaborate with MANS in such efforts and to make sure that these initiatives are spread throughout the population. MANS, of course, works in the state of Maharashtra, but the state of Maharashtra is larger than, as I've pointed out, when Avinash Patil came to our convention to receive the Abhijit Roy Courage Award on behalf of MANS, that Maharashtra is larger than most countries in the world, or a lot of countries in the world. It is a vital region of India, with Mumbai, of course, as the capital, and the fact that among tens of millions that MANS is doing its good work is very, very key and very, very vital. Similarly, we here in the United States are trying to change minds, one at a time perhaps, but it's through such key work on changing an individual's thinking, person by person, that social change comes about, and that's why it's so important. And it's drop by drop that a bucket or a lake or an ocean is formed, and that's the reason that we feel that the work we are doing is absolutely key and vital, especially when so many politicians and political leaders, even now in the United States, Republican governors, for example, and in India, of course, the current government in New Delhi and so many state governments are so willing and happy to spread misinformation, to not take a scientific approach. It is actually a bit disheartening that the current Indian government is, in some sense, a descendant of Prime Minister Nehru's first government in the 1950s and 60s, and yet takes such a diametrically opposed view of science. And that is even more so the reason that Man's work is important. And we here at FFRF are very, very eager to work with Mans in such projects in the future, and we wish Mans all the best. And on the occasion of National Scientific Temper Day and India's 75th anniversary, we are so glad that this webinar is being organized and that the Freedom from Religion Foundation is taking a small part in participating in it. Thank you so much, and our greetings and best wishes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amitabh Pal, for a brilliant speech. You spoke about the COVID situation in US and India and how the situation was handled by respective governments and the people of both the countries. You praised the scientific approach of our ex-Prime Minister Nehruji. Then you also pointed about unscientific handling of COVID situation in India and also in US. You have talked about scientific, mathematical, and media illiteracy of people of both the countries, and that is a very important factor. And it shows that economic and scientific country like US and comparatively less developed country like India, the situation means people are same. And your message to the rationalist, drop by drop ocean is formed, is a very valuable message for people working in this field. So thank you very much for this speech. So, all of us have enjoyed it. And I again request Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao to see whether there are any questions on this speech. And let's go ahead for question answer session.
There are no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
So now it is time of our chairperson's speech, presidential speech in this today's webinar. Our president is Mr. Avinash Patil. He is executive president of the organization, as well as vice president of FIRA, that is Federation of Indian Rationalist Associations. But before that, I request Dr. Pramod Ganganmale. He is co-editor of our house magazine, to give introduction of Mr. Avinash Patil to all of us. Over to you, Dr. Pramod Ganganmale.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Avinash Ramesh Patil belongs to Amritsar region of Maharashtra. He has completed diploma in civil engineering, but from childhood, he has been associated with the organizations and works that contribute to make the society rational and humanitarian one. He worked with Rashtra Seva Dal, Chhatra Bharati Students Organization during his school days. In an educational trust. He is associated with different organizations like Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti, Sani Guruji Karmabhumi Smarak Pratishthan, Amritsar, Samajik Kritanyata Nidhi, Manav Adhikrut Gat, Vice President of FIRA, that is Federation of Indian Rationalist Association. These all things make him contribute a lot in the agitations and movements that commenced for establishment of North Maharashtra University at Jalgaon. After establishment of the university, he participated in different socio-educational activities in the university in association with professors, students, teachers, and other stakeholders of the university. The organization of 12th state level conference of 1000 students in 1995 proves his contribution and deep consciousness about education. He worked as Senate member of the university in appointed by Honorable Governor of Maharashtra. Rashtra Seva Dal is an organization which inculcates the values and social responsibilities among the people. India, as dreamed by Mahatma Gandhi, is an objective of Rashtra Seva Dal. Avinash Patil has been associated with Rashtra Seva Dal with the same dream of Sane Guruji and Mahatma Gandhi. In 2000, he organized Yuva Sankalp Adhiveshan and published Youth Manifesto. On the occasion of Diamond Jubilee of Indian independence, he organized Humanity Awareness Walk from Amarnath to Faizpur under the logo of We Are Made for Country Youth Resolution Campaign. He took hard efforts to spread peace and love among the people at the time of riots at the time of Babri Masjid demolition. He organized peace walk and unity conferences at that time. He initiated Hindu-Muslim Unity Conference and social harmony and the works of different committees that contributed a lot to establish peace in the society. He made educational manifesto on scientific approach and eradication of superstitions. He contributed a lot in the issues of farmer suicide, rural development, agriculture, education, violence against women, and policies of the things. Social Gratitude Fund, formed and participated by well-known actor Dr. Shriram Lagu and Nilu Phole, Sadashiv Amrapurkar, labor leader Dr. Baba Adhav, Dr. Narendra Dabolkar, Gajanan Khatu, and others. He is associated with this Social Gratitude Fund. He is also associated with Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti before from the formal establishment of the Samiti. He was executive president of Amarnath branch for 2 years from 1988. He also worked as Jalgaon district general secretary and state committee member and actively continuously for 6 years since 1990, and thereafter carried out responsibilities of state executive member for 12 years. He worked as full-time worker of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti since 1996, and he is shouldering the state executive president responsibilities since 2009. He is associated with all programs of MANS since its inception, like animal sacrifice prevention, intercaste and interreligion marriages, rationality, scientific temperament, and mostly he is known for the Dakin tradition, that is witchcraft tradition in the Marathwada region. Under his leadership, MANS organized so many successful programs to enlighten people on the issues of superstition, scientific temperament, and many other things. 2 laws passed by Maharashtra Assembly or the state of Maharashtra under his leadership and under the works and contributions of all the volunteers of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti. One law is anti-superstition law that was demand of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti and Dr. Narendra Dabolkar since 25 years. And another law is anti-social boycott law, which is passed by Maharashtra Assembly. And these 2 laws are imitated by so many states in India and a few countries in the world. Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti received Avijit Roy Courage Award in 2019, and Avinash Patil is also awarded with a few awards for this contributive work works in Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti and many other works that he is associated with. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Pramod, for this comprehensive introduction of our Executive President, Mr. Avinash Patil. Now I request Mr. Avinash Patil to deliver his chairperson's speech. Over to you, Mr. Avinash Patil, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Uttam Jogdanji. I'm very happy to hear to Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj representing Center for Inquiry, then Dr. Abigail Hafer representing for American Humanist, Dr. Amitabh Pal representing Freedom from Religion Foundation, and in the presence of our colleague, Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao, Sushila Munde, Dr. Savita Shete, Uttam Jogdan, Dr. Pramod, and others. Today, on the occasion of this international webinar on the topic of scientific temperament for independence and independence for scientific temperament, I think our all distinguished guests are very well narrated the theme of these topics uh, with the reference of our present situations in their country, in United States, and all over world also. On the background of COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic situation, there is a very much so many type of practices was promoting pseudoscience and anti-scientific temperament by state dignitaries and uh, some beneficiaries, groups, and individuals in their different countries. The political leadership's willingness to take the guidance of scientists and researchers in the field of this pandemic situation is in which countries the happens the and the guidance of scientists and researchers, the loss of humanity and human beings are less. But in our country, in India also, the political leadership's will is not for promoting scientific temperament nowadays. So for that, our organization, MANS, is trying to take the stand to promote scientific temperament on our different type of group programs and approaches with the community of society. Uh, as per our yes, discussion, Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj very well narrated the as corona pandemic virus delta variants and about Kumbh Mela, and after that Karma Siddhanta, and also the importance of Indian constitutions and the scientific temperament mentioned in as a citizen's rights and citizens' responsibility in our Indian constitution. And the Dr. Abigail ma'am also very well stated that the about that the public science is required to promote the science for humanity, science for common man, science for society, and man's is trying to work on this theme. Our in India, All India People Science Network and our organization MANS and pro scientific organizations and individuals have resolved to observe 20th August, a martyr day of Dr. Narendra Dabholkar, as a National Scientific Temper Day. 21st September is already observed as Miracle Truth Seeker Day since 1995, because Ganesha idols drinking milk incidents in 21st September 1995. During these months, like-minded organizations and individuals contribute to develop scientific temperament through different activities in Pan India. This year, MANS has decided to organize national and international conference on scientific temperament for comprehensive human development through print, audio, visual, and digital platforms for effective discussion on different stages, utilization, and success of scientific temperament. Freedom has played fundamental role in incremental human development. This underlines the importance of to understand, inculcate, and disseminate at the concept, meaning, and parameters of freedom with social reform to human values and its interconnection with human development. MANS, on the occasion of Diamond Jubilee of India's freedom, has decided to centralize the theme of proclamation of freedom for scientific temperament from 15th August 21 to 15th August 2022. Freedom of questioning and criticism is very vital for eradication of superstitions. Secured and auspicious space is required for it. Human history has proved that the human groups that guaranteed and provided the secured and patronage space of freedom of questioning and criticism have developed themselves with decisive pleasure, happiness, peace, and fertility. This has again proved the importance of concept of freedom to develop the human world along with other creators on the earth. To move this forward, we have to inculcate in our deep consensus concept of freedom and its related aspect like democracy, republic, socialism, secularism, physical development through preservation of and promotion of environmental resources. These universal values have to be understood with the connection of freedom. Mans will celebrate this proclamation of freedom for scientific temperament throughout the year of 15th August 21 to 22. We have resolved to organize 75 online lectures on the core concept throughout our Maharashtra states in the first phase from this 21st August 2020 to 21st September. This will be associated with constructive and prominent efforts to bring the freedom for really scientific temperament as one of the policies of life on the center of state, nation, and world also. We have to strive for continuous dialogues and acceptance of scientific temperament on the local, that means to local to global level. This not only requires the decision of scientific temperament associated with the exploitation in the name of God, religion, and traditions, but constantly and deliberately we have to focus on acceptance, dialogue, and discussion of scientific temperament on all fields of human behavior for comprehensive human development. To achieve this, we initiate to build a connective and inclusive dialogue on state, nations, and international level of all associated individuals and organizations. This will collectively help to understand each other with work experiences and conclusive potentials on different socio-cultural and political levels to form a future connectivity. During this year, we will concentrate to eradicate the hurdles of human development with the help of scientific thoughts and life process. This will definitely help to understand the local complications with universal aspects and the interest to step forward for the eradication of the hurdles of human development. Prime focus is on to initiate a dialogue to get knowledge, temperament, analysis, and remedies. The people of Maharashtra, India, and world face the contraction and attacks on freedom of life. The repetition of history of exploitation and repression of freedom will repeat in future. We experience the constant emergence of symbols, idols, and systems. This exploitation and repression. Questioning is the first step towards eradication of exploitation and subjugation along with reformation in it. The only active and positive way is to propagate and accept the scientific temperament and consensus or rationality from individual to society through removing the repression of fear and death. The enemies of human security and life with honor and freedom exist from violence and bigotry, Talibani to so-called Sanatani. They subjugate the freedom and support their own value systems that depress the scientific temperament and its requisites like questioning, criticism, and right to object and protest, which subsequently leads towards the depression of right to life. So we have to build the consensus and rational thoughts systems that make the possibilities of delivering contemporary, open and free coordinating thoughts to their natural and fruitful growth and developments. Let's support the proclaim this freedom. Let accept the scientific temperament, proclaim the rationality. Long live scientific temperament, long live rationality, long live freedom. We will fight and we will win for it. Thanks. Jai Jagat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Avinash Patil, for your this presidential speech. You briefly summarized the speeches of all the three speakers. You also inform all of us about future plans of MANS and how the plans will be executed. You also talked about propagation of scientific temper and the hurdles faced by us while doing that. Thank you very much for this, your nice speech. And before we move towards the concluding part of this webinar, I once again request Dr. Sudesh Ghoderao whether there is any question from our participants, any other question, else we will move towards concluding part of this.
Since all the three speakers are from the United States of the America, so it's a common question to all of you. I feel that each one can comment and each one can answer. The question reads like, how dangerous is it for you to continue your mission in the United States? The question is asked by Arun Inamdar. Just repeat the question once again. How dangerous is it for you to continue your mission in the United States? I think Vinod sir, Hafer ma'am, and Amitabh Pal, all three can answer their way.
Well, we at FFRF are really fortunate that we are based in Madison, Wisconsin. And so at least at the local level, we don't face very much hostility because it's a very progressive city. But as Annie Laurie Gaylor and Dan Barker, who have set up the organization, and we have been there for many, many years, can tell you, there's been a lot of hate and anger directed at us over the years. And it's hard to know what to take seriously and what not. But there's been a lot of threats over time, which is why we basically have to take certain precautions at our office. Thankfully, beyond that, there hasn't been any actual cases of us being, like physically, in danger, in jeopardy. But yes, we have faced a lot of anger and a lot of invective and a lot of threats over the years. And that's something that we always have to face, confront, and somehow, work through that.
Yes, I likewise am fortunate in where I live. I live in eastern Massachusetts near Boston, and I feel fairly safe here, both in terms of the mission that we're describing, but also in terms of scientific acceptance in general. It's a very well vaccinated portion of the country, and likewise, generally accepting of science, generally accepting of my mission. So in terms of my everyday life, I feel fairly safe. It is harder in other parts of the country. There have been times when I have spoken in other parts of the country where I personally have felt fine. But where they have said, they've asked me basically for talking points because they say, you don't know what it's like living here where there's a church on every corner. And we really have a hard time even talking about evolution, without there being pushback, and that's pushback at best. Which is why they like having me coming there, basically giving them talking points. But people can feel very intimidated in other parts of the country. And of course, in other parts of the country with regards COVID and the like, there are some very dangerous areas indeed, both in terms of passing around of the virus, but even in terms of people being bullied if they wear masks. And I speak now not from personal experience, but from the experience of close friends of mine living elsewhere in the United States.
Yeah, Vinod sir, you want to say something? Vinod sir, you have to unmute yourself. Please unmute.
I think it's not the physical worry, but, like our Richard Dawkins, he gets criticized a lot, So he goes through verbal abuse. I mean, he keeps getting all kinds of interesting emails, and he made a whole collection of those, and we enjoy those kind of things. So there's no physical danger, but people abuse him like crazy, So that's the only thing.
Okay, thank you. There are no more questions. So, Uttam Jogdan sir, go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you for this. This question was very important, particularly we have lost our leader,
Yes.
and we were just eager to know what is happening in US. So thank you for your answer, sir. Now we are moving towards the concluding part of this webinar, and I will go for presenting the vote of thanks. I'm very thankful to all the present here, all the members, national, international. But before that, I am very thankful to our respected guest speakers, Vinod Bhardwaj, sir, Madam Dr. Abby Hafer, Dr. Amitabh Pal, and they have enlightened us. They have given very good speeches, many new things we learned from their speeches. So thank you, all of you, for being with us, and particularly looking at the timing of America. Vinod sir was saying that it was 3:30 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, it's 5 now, 5:12.
Yeah. And it is really, we are grateful to all of you. You are still awake when it was a very deep sleeping time. So thank you, all of you. And this shows the commitment towards rationalism of all of you. And that is really encouraging for all of us. And we the rationalists from India, have to learn a lot from that. I am thankful to our Executive President Avinash Patil for giving his chairperson's speech. I am also thankful to our technical lead, Avdut, and present here, all the present here. And I am also thankful to all the members of Maharashtra Andhshraddha Nirmulan Samiti, Sushila Munde, then Pramod Ganganmale, Savita Shete, our national coordinator, and all other members. I'm really thank you for making this webinar successful. Now, before conclusion of this webinar, here will be a song, "We Shall Overcome." This movement song will be played, and thereafter this webinar will be ended. I request Avdut Kamble to play that song. And again, thank you all. And I apologize if I have committed any mistake during my anchoring or during my expressing this vote of thanks. And over to you, Avdut Kamble, for playing the song.
We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. shall live